Alright, hello and welcome everybody back to another video. Today we're going through my flight simulator setup at home. And it could be a very quick review of what I have and then a bit of a discussion of what I think you should buy if you're going to get into the market of flight simming, if you're new to it, and what you should probably avoid or put on the back burner until you got the basic essentials. So speaking about basic essentials, stick and throttle or yoke and throttle, depending on what you're going to buy, is what plane you fly. So if you're going to be flying the Airbus in the sim, most likely, or if that's your airplane of choice, you're going to want a side stick or some sort of joystick and a dual throttle setup. If you're flying anything with a yoke, MD-80, MD-11, 737, 777, you know, anything like that, you're going to want a yoke and throttle setup. Usually dual, but the other throttles come with maybe 2 or more. We'll get into that later. Anyways, in my case, I have a Boeing TCA Thrustmaster yoke. This is the pendulum yoke, which allows for that kind of feeling. Works quite well. It's not force feedback, and it's a little bit too loose compared to a real airliner yoke, but it's good for flight simming. It does its job. For the side stick wise, we have the virpil Mongoose stick or grip with the virpil warbird base. Let me go back up. Price wise of this, Canada wise, is about $450, I want to say, roughly. Price to get this to Canada is about $600 after shipping, tax, and all that kind of stuff. We'll get into this later, but you don't need this for Microsoft Flight Sim. This is more of a DCS product. We'll get into that later. Mounts, I'm using, I'll put the link in the description. I forgot the names. There's nothing fancy. They're like $100. You get 2 of them for $100 on Amazon, and ships with Prime. So and they work well. It's a variable mount, so it works with any joystick, pretty much anything. Virpil, Thrustmaster, CH products, whatever you want. It all works with the different combinations you can do. Then I have a Reverb G2, which is going to be phased out. I have a Pimax crystal light on the way. Ordered it 3 months ago, just waiting for it to be shipped. But we'll get into if you need this or not later. In the back, I got a Razer Black Shark V2. It's a pro wireless headset. I love the wireless headsets, way better than wired headsets. First monitor is a Samsung Odyssey G9. It's the OLED. It's I think 1000R curve. It's not that curved. It's not bad, but it's not as curved as the LED panel, whatever they're offering is. The OLED isn't as curved. Looking up, we have the Asus 34-inch ultra wide as well. That's This is 144 hertz at I think it's 2K or 1440p, something like that. The bottom one is 265 hertz with a 0.02 or something millisecond response. It's crazy low. I don't get it. I'm not going to play a game with that. And then I think also just barely, it can't reach 4K because just how long it is, but I think it's 5140 by 1440 or something like that. The specs are online. It looks nice, whatever it is. To the left we have our autopilot panels. So this is a 737 MCP and then a Airbus FCU. I think. I don't know Airbus terms. So this one's an Airbus, this one's a Boeing, and this one's custom. This is not by anybody. And this one's Winwing. So this is the Winwing. $100 for this. Absolute great price. Do you need it when you're first starting? No. But once you have the essential stick, rudder, and throttle, or whatever your setup is going to be, the core 3, then you can start getting into other stuff. Down here we have the Thrustmaster Warthog throttle. Pretty basic, or not basic, but pretty good throttle. It's been around for a long time. Mine actually just broke, so I replaced it with this one. Looking back on it, should I have gotten a virpil? Yes, I just didn't want to wait for the throttle because it takes a couple months sometimes. But do you need this for Microsoft Flight Sim? No, this is a DCS product. We'll get into that later. But that's pretty much the entire setup looking at it, except for the rudder pedals, which are last, for good reason. These are really old. These are 8, I think, years old Saitek ProFlight rudder pedals. I will be changing those out for crosswind rudder pedals. The crosswind V2 or 3 I think are out now. They're very nice. About 400, I think, Canadian to get that. So those look really good, and I've heard very good things. So now I'm going to talk about what you need versus what you want. So what you're going to need if you're a flight simmer and want to get into it a bit more, the first thing you're going to need is a joystick and or a yoke. If you're going to get a joystick and or a yoke without a throttle, get one that at least has some sort of axis so you can map the throttle to that controls the engine, right? Preferably you're going to get a throttle as well, but if you can't, try to get the stick or the yoke with an axis on it. Recommendations if you're flying Airbus, this is a virpil, so it's kind of overkill. It's meant for DCS with all these buttons and things. You don't need any of that for the Airbus. You need a push to talk, a change view, an autopilot disconnect, and maybe there's something else on there. So recommendations for this, the ones I've been hearing that are very good is the Winwing, the brand new Winwing Airbus side stick. I've heard that's very good. The Thrustmaster also has an Airbus stick as well, but I've heard the Winwing is far superior. So maybe look into the Winwing stick and see if you can afford it. If you can't, you can try to get the bundle. Thrustmaster offers an Airbus stick and an Airbus throttle for a bundled price. So that might be a good option for you. I would check out Winwing, then Thrustmaster. Yoke-wise, the main two that I've seen that on the market are the Honeycomb Alpha yoke and the Boeing TCA Thrustmaster yoke. The difference is one of them is a pendulum, which means it has this feeling where it pushes and pulls on kind of that beam at the bottom, that post. Whereas the Honeycomb Alpha kind of has a pull that runs from here into the yoke, and it's a push-pull into the system like this. If you're doing airliner stuff, this is kind of one you want. More on that point, to me, I've tried the Honeycomb Alpha multiple times at friends' houses and things. In real life, I've flown a 172. I've been an instructor on that. I flew a Seminole, and I've flown a CRJ, and I currently fly the CRJ. The Honeycomb yoke, for some reason, has a ridiculously loose roll axis and a crazily stiff pitch axis. And I don't know where they came up with that idea, but that's not how any plane flies that I've flown. This one's not perfect. This one's still kind of loosey-goose, but it's not as bad. You can also put the extra spring, which I did, for the pitch feel, but there's no extra tightening for the roll feel. Real life, if you do this, the yoke isn't moving in real life on an airliner. It isn't going to do that, but it's good for sim. It's what it's for. So I would recommend this one if you're doing airline stuff. If you have the money, I would get, and I'll put the link in the description because I forget the name, but there's a force feedback yoke that's on the market now that looks really crazy good. I would start looking into force feedback if you got the money and time for it. So that's the Thrustmaster. Lastly, so once you've sorted out your control column-wise, either a stick or yoke, you're going to look into a throttle, hopefully. And throttle-wise, again, you don't need a Thrustmaster Warthog. This is a replica of an A10 Warthog throttle kind of setup. This is if you play DCS. This works for both DCS and Microsoft. This works for both DCS and Microsoft. If you just play Microsoft, you don't need this. This will run you about $500. I should say this will run you about $500 as well, actually, maybe $450. And in Canada as well. So instead of this, if you're just going to play Microsoft, you can get the Airbus throttle quadrant and maybe get it bundled, or you can get the Honeycomb Bravo throttle, which I've actually seen it works pretty well. And what I would do with that is Honeycomb Bravo, the throttle itself is good with a lot of switches, but you can also go on Etsy and get custom airplane handles and spoiler levers and all sorts of stuff. So if you want to fly a 737, you can have a completely custom 737 kit for your Honeycomb Bravo for like $80, and it looks really good. So I would probably get that if you can get your hands on it. I know they're kind of harder to find now. I think they've been discontinued. So Boeing or Thrustmaster also has a Boeing version of their throttle as well that pairs up with this. So you can get a bundled yoke and TCA throttle as well, and that might be a good option for you. And I'll put all the links in the description for you as well. Rudder pedals, avoid these. I shouldn't say that. They're good starter pedals. I've had them for like eight years now, so they do last. At least the Saitek ones do. Now Saitek got bought out by Mad Cats, which got bought out by Logitech, and I think they're Logitech still now. So if they're pretty cheap as well. So if you want to get them, they're not bad for starting pedals. But if they also have on the market a Thrustmaster pedal, the TFRP, I think a TRFP. They're quite expensive. They're about $700, but I've heard they're very good. So for starter pedals, this is about $200. The CH rudder pedals are about $200. I think Thrustmaster has a cheaper rudder pedal setup as well that you can look into. Crosswinds online, they're called Crosswinds rudder pedals, I think are $300, $330, and they're custom and they're very high quality metal. So a lot of rudder pedal choices, and again, I'll leave some links in the description as well. Autopilot panels, you don't need any of this when you're starting. You can kind of get this once you got the PC, which I haven't talked about. It's 4080, RTX 4080, DDR5, 64 gigs at 6400 megahertz. And then with water cooling, it's a 14th Gen i7 with 1350 on the power. So it does the job. Once you have a PC that can run the sim, once you got the core either stick, yoke, and throttle setup, one of these two and a throttle, then and the rudders, once you have kind of the three, then you can look into other things. So other things being autopilot panel and VR. This for $100 is a complete steal. I can't recommend this enough. It's so nice and it's really actually high quality feeling for the price. Once you buy one and use one, you'll never want to go back. If you're using this for real life training or real life recurrent sim training that we have to do every 6 months, having one of these is so much more muscle memory, I guess, than going here and trying to find your mouse and click the switch and misclick and scroll the knob, and it's just done, right? 2 seconds. So get that after you have the base controls done. And yeah, for screen wise, you don't need this. That'll cost you about $2,000. Don't need that. You need something like this. This is about $250. It's a 34-inch ultra wide display port at 2K. That's a pretty decent monitor. You can even get 2 of them for $500. You can have one that has all your sims on it, and then the other one that have your charts and maps and all that, the stuff on the right. So maybe 2 of these or 1 of these. This you can get later once you kind of got everything else, if you want it. Lastly, VR. If you're playing DCS, I highly recommend some sort of head tracking. In this case, I like VR more than track IR because of the 3D aspect. It makes air refueling, carrier approach, formation, all that kind of stuff, dogfighting, a lot better because you have a 3D perspective of what's happening outside. Are the visuals as good? No. However, the immersion is still so much better than 2D. When the Pimax does come in, I'll be reviewing that as well, even though there's a bunch of reviews that are probably better than mine that are already on YouTube, and you can watch those and pick one of those up as well. So do you need it? No. Do you want it? Probably. It is really sweet. Yeah, I like it better in DCS than Microsoft. I don't actually ever use it in Microsoft, just DCS. But that's quite a bit it. So stick or yoke, a throttle, rudder pedals. That's kind of order I would buy them in. Once you have the basic 3 and your PC can run the sim and you got a screen and all that, then you can start looking into other stuff. Autopilot panels, VR, upgrading PC, Winwing's new MCDU or FMC for the PMDG will be coming out shortly. All that kind of stuff I would add later, because remember, you're still buying airplanes in the sim, you're still buying charts, you gotta buy the sim. So get the core, sticker, yoke, throttle, and rudder, and then you can start buying other stuff. Is my recommendation. If you have all the money in the world, do whatever you want. Buy a full cockpit for like 30 grand. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the setup. Is it the cleanest? No. Is it efficient for me? Yes, it works quite well. So I'll put all the links in the description for you. You can see what I have. I'll put what I have, and then I'll put a section for recommendations of what you can look into. If you enjoyed this, please leave a like. I would love to have you be a subscriber, and if you comment what you liked, what you didn't like, or what you have and what you use. We'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.